What's the best long con you ever pulled? I have told someone who is sort of annoying to look up this video on YouTube called the purple sock video. It doesn't exist. I know that it sounds really stupid, but he will continually lie about what he has or hasn't done. So, I told him to look this video up that doesn't exist because it is really funny. It's supposed to just have a ton of different animals that are attacking a sock. I don't know why. That's just the type of humor that he likes. So, what I wanted to see him do is say that he has watched it just to prove that all he wants to do is fit in with me. So far, it has been around 6 or 7 months. He has said that he has watched it 5 times and still does not realize that it doesn't exist. I predict a sudden surge in searches for this in the next few hours. I convinced my friend that penguins could fly. I backed it up with a video the BBC did for an April Fool's one year. A couple months later, I heard him telling a friend no, trust me, some species can fly. My dad made up a fictional person where he works 11 years ago. He will occasionally call him over the PA system and watch as everyone gets confused about who this guy is. The funniest part is that this guy has worked there for 11 years and nobody knows who he is. My grandfather, an Air Force pilot, once told the tower that he had a Oscar C. clutch aboard. When he landed there was a whole welcoming party waiting for this high-ranking, non-existent officer. He got in minor trouble, and the family got a go-to pseudonym to use at coffee shops. I convinced my younger brother that the reason he had a line in the middle of his scrotum was because he was born without genitals and therefore had to acquire some from donations from people in car accidents. And they sewed 2 halves from different people together so that his would be unique. He believed that until he was about 13. Frankenstones. At the fast food place I worked at, I had a running one where the light switches for the bathrooms were in the main dining room. So every time a new person would start I would tell them the lights were clappers. They would go in there and clap to try it out and I would just flick them off and on. Usually they would catch on after 2-3 shifts though. Well, we had one person who I was able to have her believe it for about a month and a half. She would even clap and I would be away from the switches and would come out of the bathroom to ask if the clappers were broken and I would have her try it again and just flickered the lights. I was a little bored there sometimes. For the past couple of years I've been magically pulling things out of my 5-year-old's ear, and sometimes his nose. To his amazement, I do it well enough that the belief is sustained and refuses to accept that I'm not gifted with magical powers that enable me to pull out chocolate bars, coins, cookies and other misc items. He quite often offers his ears for inspection. If I put something back in his ear then he'll be convinced that the item is in his head causing a headache and will almost cry to have me take it out again. Couple more years left in it I think. In the army, a dude in my squad once convinced most of our unit that we were slotted to return to our home base a month ahead of time. The con started with him fricking with another platoon. Soon it spread to the entire company, and then it was battalion wide. It got to the point where platoon sergeants believed it. The best part? He totally forgot that he started the rumor and got pee when it was addressed a couple of weeks before the supposed departure. After a bit of piecing the game of telephone together, he realized that he was PO'd it himself. The con so long it reached around. Not me but my father. From the ages of about 2-6 he had me convinced that the Irish for goodnight was Mikhail Gorbachev. My older brother told my little brother, about 5 at the time, that humans didn't originate on planet Earth, that we had to abandon our planet because our star was going supernova, and we lost our technology in the process. Very unoriginal sci-fi plot, but the kid was 5 so he was somewhat suspicious, but still willing to believe. He came to me to ask for confirmation, because I wasn't the type of person to try to trick him. I was going to tell him it was bulls, but thought it might be funny, so I told him it was true and forgot about it. When my little bro was 16 he told us that he believed that for years and convinced a bunch of his school friends it was true. He was P. It was hilarious. One day in college I showed up at some friend's house to meet them and they all weren't there, but the door was unlocked. Annoyed, I walked in and wrote "You'll never know what I took" on their kitchen whiteboard and walked back out. I forgot all about it. Must have been a year later they were talking about the crap they lost in the robbery. I asked them what they were talking about and they mentioned the note on the whiteboard. Apparently they had been blaming the disappearance of crap around their house on it the whole year. One guy even claimed his iPod was stolen. Dang, lost another sock. Must have been the robber. My group of friends and I have convinced at least 5 people so far that Made in Manhattan was written by Quentin Tarantino and directed by him as well. Usually after a while they watch it or have even had friends over to watch it, and the con ends. Though one guy who did work for a major advertising agency told his creative director, who is a film buff, that his favorite movie by Quentin was Made in Manhattan. He thought this offhand movie knowledge would impress him, and got asked to leave the meeting to think about what he had done. While brilliant, I simply don't understand why everyone doesn't Google it on their phones. I look up everything I have even the smallest doubt about. I was long conned by a coworker. I worked in a factory with an Indian man who was a really nice guy. He would talk about how him and his family would get together on the weekend and make big sausage pizzas and recommend I try it. He told me to look it up, but I just kept putting it off, and he'd ask me every Monday in his thick Indian accent, "Oh, did you try out the big sausage pizza? Just check it out online for the recipe." After several months I decided to check out this website since he had been so insistent. This must be some good fricking pizza for someone to give it so much praise every week. It was dongs in pizza. I convinced a friend that if you wave at a koala for long enough, it will wave back. I'd actually forgotten that I convinced her of this until she sent me an angry text saying that she'd been to the zoo with her family, proudly told them this fact and begun waving. They all laughed at her. I called her and laughed too. In high school I had a teacher who had us read long passages of geography books and outline important information, then put it in our own words. We found out that he never read anything past the first page. I guess he was pretty lazy, so I would just do the first page of the 15-page assignment, then the rest would be a part of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He never caught me. We used to do that with a history teacher. It became apparent that he only read the first and last paragraph of your essay. As long as you had a solid intro and summary, you were good. I would include lines in the body paragraphs like, "Circle this sentence if you're reading this," "recipes for chocolate cupcakes," etc. Never got caught. I had a roommate a couple years ago that was notoriously terrible at saving his money. He was in really bad debt and sinking further and further into financial ruin. He was also my best friend, so I wanted to help. I had tried giving him a budget, holding on to his money, and even lying to him about where I was going so he wouldn't come to the bars and spend more. He was terribly embarrassed and hid his debt from everyone, but I knew. For the 3 years we lived together I lied to him about the amount of rent and the price of utilities. I would take the extra money and send it to his mom. His mom would then use that money to pay off his multiple credit cards. He was so humiliated about his debt he wouldn't have his credit card statements sent to our place and had them sent to his mom's instead. He never thought she opened them. While he thought he was just racking up interest by avoiding his bills, they were actually being paid every month by him. Me and his mom didn't knock out his debt completely, but we did a pretty good job of taking care of most of it. We had these omelette crispers in my freezer one time. Microwavable bread pockets filled with egg and cheese, like Hot Pockets, but the breading was soggy and tasted gross. Anyway, there was one left, and just a frick with my brother, I ate it and said how delicious it was, even though it was disgusting. After a few bites of pure bliss, as he thought it was, he asked for a bite to try it. Of course, I refused, as it was fantastic. He kept asking for a bite, and I kept refusing. This turned into a chase around the house, me eating it all along. Finally, I finished it without him having gotten a taste. He says he doesn't care, it's whatever, yada yada. For a few days, I mention it to our parents when he's nearby but doesn't think I know he can hear, saying how good it was. He can't get it out of his head how great this sounds. Finally, after a week, he goes out and buys a box. He gets home and immediately begins to heat one up. He's gloating the whole time about how I won't get a single one. They're all his, blah blah. The whole time, I'm looking disappointed, while I'm really trying not to burst out laughing. It finishes. He takes a bite, and I swear I can see his face go green. He practically vomits in the sink while I struggle to breath from laughing so hard. Dumb? Yes. Worth it? Very. You are amazing. I greatly admire your self-sacrifice. My brother conned me out of months of allowance by setting up a communal fish fund which was meant to pay for fish food, other pet stuff. so we'd both put half our allowance money in each week, but I didn't notice for almost a year that not all the money was going to our pet fish. He was fudging the books. Your brother is the accountant from heck. A coworker would always print recipes out on a communal printer. Another coworker sat by the printer and would always steal the printout. First coworker was always a little confused but would just print out a second copy. This went on for months, and around Christmas time the sneaky coworker bound all the recipes together in a book and left it on her desk. My friend successfully convinced a group of people from Texas that in Ireland we don't have Wednesdays. We could all do without Wednesdays. I convinced my brother when he was little that duck sauce is made from real ducks. He was horrified. I would make a big show of putting it on an egg roll and saying how good it was. He continued to be nauseated through the years. I finally told him the truth when he was in high school. It still took several years before he would try it. When I was in the military, I would answer the phone in my shop with an Irish accent. Note, to real Irish people, yes, I sound like a plastic paddy. However, voices and impressions are one of the things I'm pretty good at overall, so I had people outside my unit convinced I was Irish. My last name is an Irish one, so it helped. This lasted for well over a year, until I was gone for a week on vacation and someone called up and then asked for the Irish airman. We don't have an Irish airman. Yeah, you do. Airman Etwazard. He's as much Irish as Bud Light. I didn't quite get punished for it, but I got a talking to over it. My boss couldn't keep a straight face though, and ended up making me go through some of my sillier voices instead of actually counsel me. I got migraines a few times during my teenage years. They only happened maybe 3-5 times and then went away, never to return. I'm 28 and haven't had one in 13 years. However, the very fact that I'd had them in the past meant that I could milk it a little bit and pretend I was having an episode so my mum would let me stay home from school. Usually this trick was saved for days when assignments were due. However, one day I didn't feel like going in because I'd been up on bash org till 2 AM. So I put on the usual act and mum let me stay home from school. The next day I still didn't like the idea of going to class, so the migraine continued, and the next day, and the next, for 2 whole weeks. The reason I finally gave up? Apparently my teachers had been really concerned about my weeks-long absence and sent me a get well card that was signed by all the kids in my grade. There was a note saying how much everyone missed me and how my name had been mentioned at morning assembly, where the whole school had prayed for me. I was the unpopular nerdy library kid. WTF. I felt so guilty I went into class the next day. Writing this out, I'm beginning to wonder if that was their ploy all along. My Asian mom would just give me a Tylenol and send my ass to school. I was over at a buddy's place and something he did pee me off. Can't even remember what it was, so I decided to draw penises, penny, on everything around me. They were stealth penis doodles. Every time he would walk away to get something, I would pencil graffiti a penis somewhere, on the TV remote, on a paper plate halfway down the stack of plates, on the inside lid of his toolbox, underneath the table, on the inside of his hard hat, on the back of a picture on the wall, on the inside of a cabinet door, anywhere I could hide a penis sketch. As many as I could. He figured it out eventually. The best part was his reaction every time he'd find another penis doodle. It's been 4 years. He's since moved, and I still get calls from him every so often. Hey butthole, I found another dong. You have been visited by the good sleep egg. You will be blessed with cozy, restful sleeps, but only if you comment sleep tight Eggman. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.